Good morning. My name is Jason Litton. I'm a software developer at Tendril. And I'm here to talk to you about classical dialectic and software development. I want to start a little by telling you how I came to this talk and why I'm doing this. I took the long way around to becoming a developer. I for a long time thought I was going to be a professor of philosophy until I was about halfway through my master's when I decided that I was not going to do that. And I got my master's at St. John's College, which is a private liberal arts great book school, where you read the primary sources of philosophy, discuss them in class. It's all based and steeped in the Socratic method and the Socratic tradition. And when I became a software developer, I started wondering what I could do with that. And I started applying it to the actual work of software development with my team just to see what happened. And it worked out pretty well, so I thought I'd share it with people. So the problem that this addresses is a problem that I began to see in software development fairly early on. There are a number of problems in software development. We're not going to go into all of them. There's this one particular problem. And it goes something like this. We need a new thing. And we need a widget, we need a new program, something like that. We give it to a developer. We say, developer, go make this thing. And the developer starts working on it. It has some assumptions that the developer brings into it. And then it's going kind of slow, so we bring in a second developer. And we say, hey, help the first developer. And the second developer thinks about it a little differently, a little orthogonal to the way the first developer thinks about it. And there's conflict, right? There's some conflict there. And then they generally work it out in code reviews and things like that. And then we take it to the product team, and the product team had the opposite idea of what they wanted. And then you go back and you rewrite it because it's not right. And then, after we get through that, somehow the customer has the opposite idea from both product and the developer. It's logically impossible, but it happens all the time. And so everyone's got maybe some overlap in their ideas, but there's a big hole in their ideas. And what lives in that hole is bugs. In fact, all bugs. With very few exceptions, the things that we encounter as bugs are our software behaving in a way that we don't think it should, but we probably wrote it that way, if we're being honest with ourselves. So why? Why does this happen? Why does it happen over and over and over again in every company? 3 reasons. 1, poor communication. I think most companies experience this to some level or another. We're not talking to each other correctly. We might be talking to each other, but we miss in how we're doing it. Second is undiscovered assumptions, right? I might not know what you are assuming. You might not know what I'm assuming. I might not know what I'm assuming. And that's really hard when that happens. Here we go. Go. Didn't sacrifice my chicken this morning. I know. Okay. The last is unclear reasoning. We do not know what we are thinking about what we are doing. We don't know what other people are thinking about what we're doing. So, we need some help in this. And I think the best person to help us is a bearded fat man. That's the wrong one. I think we need someone from a little longer ago. Not quite. The best bearded fat man to help us with this is Socrates. Who is Socrates? So Socrates is an Athenian from Greece, not Georgia, from about 2,500 years ago. He taught debate, sort of, on the side. And the rest of the time, he mostly just walked around and people came up and asked him questions like, hey Socrates, what's justice? as you do. And he himself never wrote anything, so there's some debate on whether he actually existed or not. For our purposes, we're going to pretend he did. Everything written about what Socrates did was written by a student of his, who was an ex-professional wrestler, whom you may have heard of. His name was Plato. What did he teach? What did Socrates teach? I find it terrible. So he taught the Socratic method, also called Dialectic. What is dialectic? I'm going to give you three definitions. They're basically the same thing. They just wrap that around themselves. At its most basic, dialectic is cooperative debate. It is taking two ideas by people who are trying to get to the same point, and it is smashing them together and getting rid of the bad things and keeping the good things. It is a way to use debate, to use discussion, to clarify thoughts, generally very abstract thoughts. It works really well in design, it works well in philosophy. It doesn't work great on which algorithm, how to write a book sort. Finally, it is a means to bring out truth, capital T truth, about the nature of the world through focused communication. That is the ultimate goal of dialectic. That is not what you're doing as a software developer. Maybe you are. Maybe you're working for a crazy company that does it. So, how do we do it? There are four things that we're going to talk about today that we need to perform dialectic. The first one, the most important one, if you don't do anything else that I say, do this. Own your ignorance. Everyone in here, myself included, is deeply ignorant. I am a deeply ignorant man. You guys are almost certainly ignorant as well. That's not an insult, that's just a statement of fact. Please don't throw anything. And you're ignorant in these ways. We're all ignorant in these ways. We believe wrong things. We think things are true that are not true. We think things are not true that are true. And you know this theoretically. But when it comes time to apply what you do, your opinions matter more to you than other people's opinions. Even though you know you're wrong a lot of times. And you fight for your opinions, and when you find out your opinions are wrong, you get really defensive. I guess I'm saying you, and I should be saying me. So we have to correct. Socrates really pushed on the ignorance. In Plato's dialogue, The Apology, Socrates is on trial. And it is a trial that will eventually lead to his death. He is on trial for impiety and corrupting the youth. And he tells this story about a friend of his who went to see the oracle at Delphi. And the oracle at Delphi is a group of priestesses who live above a volcanic vent, who huff volcanic fumes and hallucinate and speak prophecy. And they are the priestesses of the god Apollo, who is the god of prophecy. And Socrates' friend goes to the oracle at Delphi and asks, who's the wisest man in Athens? And the oracle at Delphi tells him, no man is wiser than Socrates. So Socrates' friend brings this back to Socrates and says, hey, Apollo says you're the wisest man in Athens. And Socrates says, I don't think that's true. And he goes and he talks to people who are renowned for their wisdom. And he starts asking them questions. How do you do what you do? What is justice? How do you know when something is good and when something is bad? And he finds out, and they find out, that they don't actually know the things that they know. And they get really mad at this. And put him on trial, and eventually kill him for this. So he's at his trial, and he's speaking to people, and he tells this story. And he finishes the story by saying, I am called wise, for my hearers always imagine that I myself possess the wisdom which I find wanting in others. But the truth is, O men of Athens, that the God only is wise. And in this oracle, he means to say that the wisdom of men is little or nothing. He is not speaking of Socrates. He is only using my name as an illustration, as if he said, he, O men, is the wisest, who, like Socrates, knows that his wisdom is in truth worth nothing. You have to admit that you don't. You have to know that you don't know. That is what makes Socrates wise. It is not anything that he holds but that he does not know. Ignorance is painful and it is costly. If you think that you know, you don't try to learn. If you think something is wrong, you will fight against it, whether you really investigate that. You will put up walls. You will block what you can do. But if you are wrong, and if you admit to yourself, really, I am wrong sometimes, and you know that, and you work to correct that, that's powerful. You could make real changes in the way that you behave with other people and the way that you do your work. And it really starts with a little exercise that we're going to do together. We're going to say the 3 hardest words for a developer to say. None of them are flossing us and I hope for the function. We're going to do it together. You're going to read off the screen. Are we ready? I don't know. You can do it. It's not so bad. But when we're in here, it's really easy to do. When you're in your job situation, it's hard. It's really hard to do that, right? A lot of software developers struggle with imposter syndrome. And saying I don't know makes that just oh no, they're gonna find me out. And you have to get over that fear. Because I don't know, your ignorance is not a stopping point, right? If someone comes and asks you, hey, how does this framework work? And you just say, I don't know, good luck. That doesn't work. There are 2 good responses to this. It's, I don't know, but I will find out. And that gives you a chance to. If you don't have time to do that, which sometimes we don't, I don't know, but here's what I do know. Here's where you start. And it gives them a chance to find out. And then you can circle back and find out what they learned and have them teach you. It doesn't matter for them. Why does it work for us? Why does it work for developers? Primarily because we are an industry of learning. Developers have to learn more at a quicker pace than nearly any other industry. Any other job does not do what we do. How often is a new JavaScript framework released? Like, I think 4 got dropped since I started this talk. If we admit that we're ignorant, if we admit that we don't know everything, if we admit that we're not the best, that gives us a chance to improve. It gives us a chance to learn. It makes us want to learn, right? You can push that imposter syndrome down a little bit because you learned a new thing today. And if you tell the people that you work with, I don't know, but I will find out. Or I don't know, but here's where you start. Then people you work with will tell you the same thing. You will know when they don't know something, instead of them faking, right? How many of you built software based on other people's assumptions? Just that guy.
Damn it.
We found you. And if you admit that you don't know, and if you can get other people on with it and you don't know, it pushes the ego out. And none of us in this room are the best developer in the world. We can throw out some names of who they might be, but it's not any of us. And that's great. We all have a chance to improve. We all have a chance to get better. And if we're all admitting where the limits of our knowledge are, then we can be vulnerable. Everyone, it becomes easier and easier over time. And the really good part of this is that there's no hubris involved. So the gods won't strike you with lightning from a clear blue sky, which is a huge problem in development for some reason. 4 out of 10 developers. The second thing to do, this is the real meat of Dialectic, is lead the conversation through questions. This is what Socrates does. This is how he behaves. And in large part, this is the Socratic method. This is what they teach in law school when they teach the Socratic method. This is what they teach in philosophy school when they teach the Socratic method. Questions. Questions are the best. It's the best way to have a conversation. Don't tell people knowledge. Pull knowledge out of them. Because if you're just standing in front of a room of people and lecturing them, they don't gather the knowledge as well as if you lead by questions. It also allows you to get out of the way, right? You are not imposing your ideas on other people. It is not an aggressive discussion. It is a productive discussion. And when you ask questions, if you draw people towards an understanding of what they know, of what they don't know, of what you know, of what we can all learn together, instead of just making them do what you want to do, which is sometimes much more time efficient, but it burns you in the end. So Socrates, this is pretty much every dialogue. It was difficult finding a dialogue that was small enough to read. So we're going to talk about Euthyphro. This is a dialogue called the Euthyphro. Socrates meets his friend Euthyphro, who's a priest, out front of the courthouse before his trial. And he says, Euthyphro, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, I'm here to testify against my father in a murder trial. And Socrates says, right. Euthyphro says, yes, it's the pious thing to do. And Socrates says, great. I am on trial for being impious. So if you tell me what piety is, I can go in and tell them that I've learned it, and I'll be better, and then everything will be fine. So Euthyphro said, okay, I'll try it. Piety, then, is that which is dear to the gods. And impiety is that which is not dear to the gods. Socrates rejoins with, oh, very good, Euthyphro. You have now given me the sort of answer which I wanted. But whether what you say is true or not, I cannot yet tell. Although I make no doubt that you will prove the truth of your words. Of course. Come then, let us examine what we are saying. That thing or person which is dear to the gods is pious, and that thing or person which is hateful to the gods is impious, those two being the extreme opposites of one another. Was that not said? It was. And well said? Well, as I said so, Socrates, it was certainly said. And further, Euthyphro, the gods were admitted to have enmities and hatreds and differences. Yes, that is also said. And what sort of differences create enmity and anger? Suppose, for example, that you and I, my good friend, differ about a number. Do differences of this sort make us enemies and set us at variance with one another? Do we not get at once to arithmetic and put an end to them by a sum? True. Or suppose we differ about magnitudes. Do we not quickly end the differences by measuring? Very true. And we end a controversy about heavy and light by resorting to a weighing machine? To be sure. But what differences are there which cannot be thus decided, and which therefore make us angry and set us at enmity with each other? I dare say the answer does not occur to me at the moment. Therefore I will suggest that these enmities, when the matters are differences of just and unjust, good and evil, honorable and dishonorable, are these not the points about which men differ, and about which we are able to unsatisfactorily to decide our differences, you and I, and all of us, when we quarrel, or we do quarrel? I'm going to stop there. They never find out what piety is. They rarely find out the answers in these. But what I want you to notice about that passage is Socrates made one statement in the entire passage. He is talking to someone who claims to know the nature of piety, and he doesn't tell them anything. He makes suggestions, and in general, he just asks questions. And Euthyphro responds very well. Why does conversing by questions work for developers? The first is because when you talk to people on your team, when you talk to your customers, you ask them questions, real questions, not like, could you do this? They feel valued. They feel that their opinion is valued. And this shouldn't just be a facade, right? Right? You should actually value the opinions of your team members. That's how teams work. The second is that you can dig further and further into people's thoughts, into their assumptions. You can peel the onion, and you can find out what lies behind their thoughts, the tribal knowledge, the history, the legacy of an idea, and of a code base, and of a company. You get into the heart of what is happening. And when you draw someone with questions, when you pull them with questions, they will believe, they will understand what their own conclusions are, because it is their conclusion. It is not your conclusion being imposed upon them. It is an idea that they arrived to. And ideas that we arrive to ourselves are much more powerful to us and much more powerful in influencing our behavior than ideas that we're told from the outside. Finally, it gets rid of groupthink, because you're not imposing ideas, right? You're not putting an idea in the middle and working on that. You're getting ideas from everyone, and that's really what it should be. It should be everyone in the room, right? Everyone in the discussion should feel comfortable putting their ideas in, whether it's the intern or whether it's the developer that's been working 50 years and only uses Fortran. And they might have good ideas. Probably not necessarily. And it reduces confrontation over that. Right? You're not fighting. It's just a series of questions. It's not a series of statements. Statements are very hard and questions are very soft. The third thing to do is seek clarity of language. So let's talk a little bit about writing code. When we write code, generally the first real thing that you write above, like the author name, usually the first thing you're going to write is a variable. And then you're going to keep writing things. You're going to have some constants. You're going to have some methods. You're going to have some classes. You're going to have programs, and those all build up into systems. What do all of these have in common? Other than they're important. What they really have in common is we give them all names. Why do we give names to our code? We don't have to. We can call anything X in code and that's still work. Which probably is React code. In general, you don't have to give them names. You can make your code incomprehensible. A lot of people do. So this is from a thread on Quora where someone asked for help with their homework. And there are 100 answers like this. Just by reading this, it's in C, I'll give you that. Can you figure out what this does? It prints smile, smile, smile. That's what this program does. If you want to see the craziest ways to print that, don't look that up. It's the greatest. So why do we have names and not just call things T or R or X? Because in our code, names clarify the function of the thing. It tells you what it is supposed to do. And when names change, we sometimes pick names out of the when we name our functions, it expresses the intent of the function. Right? What am I supposed to put in? What am I supposed to get out? Why do I use this function versus that function? And it encodes the knowledge in the code. And if your code does all of these three things, your code is self-documented. If it misses any of these, comment the shit out of it. So, my favorite example of this is actually not from Socrates, it's from Confucius. Confucius is Chinese Socrates. He is to Asian thought what Socrates is to Western thought. And he has this statement in the Confucian Analects. It starts like this. Zulu, who is a student of Socrates, says, "The ruler of Wei has been waiting for you in order with you to administer the government. What will you consider the first thing to be done? The master, as Confucius says, what is necessary is to rectify the names. So, indeed, said Sulu, you are wide of the mark. Why must there be such a rectification? The master said, how uncultivated you are, you! A superior man, in regard to what he does not know, shows a cautious reserve on your ignorance. If names be not correct, language is not in accordance with the truth of things. If language be not in accordance with the truth of things, affairs cannot be carried on to success. When affairs cannot be carried on to success, proprieties in music do not flourish. When proprieties in music do not flourish, punishments will not be properly awarded. When punishments are not properly awarded, the people do not know how to move hand or foot. Therefore, a superior man considers it necessary that the names he uses may be spoken appropriately, and also that what he speaks may be carried out appropriately. What the superior man requires is just that in his words there may be nothing incorrect. So for Confucius, clarity in language is the heart of governing a country. Probably pretty easy. Why do we know? Do it up front. Figure out what your terms are. Figure out, make an agreement with the people that you're working with. We're going to call this idea this thing. And if you get the name a little wrong, you can fix it later. It's fine. But if you have an explicit, overt agreement, then you know when you use the same terms, you are talking about the same thing. You have that knowledge, and everyone has that knowledge in the room. Second, if you think that everyone has the same idea for a term, and they do not, you will go off and implement your interpretation of those terms, and you will bring it back and they'll say, that's not what I meant. And then you go back and write it. You will do this process at some point. Probably better to do it first. So make this explicit with your team, with your customers, with any stakeholders you have in your development. Make a conscious effort as a group to define your terms before you use them. And if the terms are wrong, change them. But make sure everyone knows that you're changing them. If you encounter your term being used in a novel way, that's a flag. Oh, something is changing. Still free. Then, if you have your terms set up, your terms get written into the code. You name your variables and your functions and your systems after the terms you agreed to. It makes it very easy to think from the bottom of the stack all the way up to talking with managers, which is impossible. The last thing we need to do is debate ideas. Don't debate people. This is a really difficult one. But it's really important because hopefully, if all is right and well in the world, you and your team have the same goals. You want your product to be the best product there is. You want to make a good tune. You just want to write good, clean code. You want to express your creativity. And hopefully everyone you're working with is pointed in the same direction. And if you're pointed in a different direction than everyone else you're working with, that direction's out. Ad hominem attacks, which are attacking the person and not the idea. Oh, Jerry, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, Jerry, I didn't mean it. Those don't make productive discussions. They don't make the technical discussions, they don't make the business discussions. If you have any doubt about this, go look at any internet comment board. And finally, we get under the gun. As developers, we've done probably several times a year. And when people are stressed out, when they're in that situation, they get upset. Don't react. You don't have to. Why are you yelling at me, Jerry? Jerry. If you focus on getting the right idea, if you focus on debating the idea rather than the person, being kind, calming that situation, diffusing the situation is much, much easier. The situation actually goes a lot smoother because it's not about people. You're not burning bridges. You're not making commitments. You're just making ideas, and you're just making good. Socrates demonstrates this when he's talking to Meno in a dialogue called Meno. Meno is a guest of Athens. He is from somewhere else, and he's there to learn debate. And he asks Socrates, can justice be taught? And Socrates says, whoa, Meno, what's justice? We got to figure that out first. And Meno gives him some definitions, and Socrates is not satisfied with the definitions. He's like, let me tell you the kind of thing I want. And Meno asks him, okay, tell me what form it is. Tell me what shape it is. And Socrates tells him, well, try to explain to you what form is. What do you say to this answer? Form is the only thing which follows color. Will you be satisfied with it, as I'm sure that I should be, if you were to let me have a similar definition of virtue? But Socrates, it is such a simple answer. Why simple? Because, according to you, form is that which always follows color. But, if a person were to say that he does not know what color is, any more than what form is, what sort of answer would you have given him? Socrates says, well, I should have told him the truth. And if he were a philosopher of eristic and antagonistic sort, I should say this: you have my answer, and if I am wrong, it is your business to take up the argument and refute me. But if we were friends, and we were talking as you and I are now, I should reply in a milder strain, and more in a dialectician's way. That is to say, I should not only speak the truth, but I should make use of the premise which the person interrogated would be willing to admit. And this is the way in which I shall endeavor to approach you. You will acknowledge, will you not, that there is such a thing as an end, or a termination, or an extremity? Yes, I should, and I believe that I understand your meaning. And you would speak of a surface and also of a solid, as for example in geometry. Yes? Well then, you are now in a condition to understand my definition of form. I define that to be that in which a solid ends, or, more concisely, the limit of a solid. What I wanted to display there is in the middle of the passage, where Socrates says, look, if I were a jerk, I'd be like, I told you what I think. It's your job. But I'm not being a jerk. We are friends. We have the same goal. So, I'm going to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. I'm going to bring you along with me, because the idea is what's important. Winning is not what's important. I'm not trying to win the debate over what form is. Socrates often talks about this in the terms of sophistry. Sophistry is trying to win a debate no matter what. The goal is winning. It is not building ideas. So that is not something we should be doing, especially as developers, especially as people engaged in intellectual activity, such as we are. Ideas should live on their own merits. It doesn't matter if it sounds good. If it's not, do good things, not things that sound good. Life would be a lot better. A lot of us engage in sophistry with ourselves. We like our ideas because they are our ideas. My ideas are way better than your ideas. That's why I'm up here tonight. But that's not true. Right? The idea is the idea. And it doesn't matter what form the idea comes in. So you have to be careful and cognizant that this happens. This is a bias. We all carry around this. It seems to be a natural human bias. But if you're conscious of it, then when you encounter an idea, when you are talking design, when we're talking architecture, when we're talking business goals, whether you like an idea or not, stop and figure out why. Take the 15 seconds it'll take to figure out why you think that's a good idea. And if you think it's not a good idea and you're not quite sure why, say that. There's something off about this thing. Dig at it, dig at it. If you start digging at those things, you can uncover massive problems before they're clear. Be skeptical. Be skeptical of the ideas you encounter, especially when it's yours. Don't think that it's better just because you made it. It might be, but prove it. Why does this work? Because development and programming is at heart an intellectual pursuit. We live and work in a world of ideas. Code is thinking crystallized. It is thinking written down. You look at ideas and you think about ideas every single day. So you should talk about ideas as ideas, not as the person delivering the ideas. If you focus on the idea, you can have disagreements about the ideas, but not fights. Disagreement without argument is great. It is really lovely. It's how you get better faith. And if you keep in mind that you're all pointed in the same direction, it makes the conflict about how to get somewhere everyone wants to be, not about what a jerk Jerry is. And finally, if you focus on cooperation in your discussion, you can figure out what you're doing before you do it, which is like the dream of development, right? We all too often find out what we're doing after we've done it. A really good way to do this is, these are my two practical tips, even though my practical tips are still very theoretical. I used to have this hanging above my desk because I was getting in a lot of fights with my test department. Because it worked for me, worked on my machine. I keep saying we're in a build system on the machine, just to You're not your code. Your code is something that you need. And it might be your career, it might be your hobby, it might be your passion. It is not you. It does not define you. It does not limit you. It is not you. It is something you do. If you keep that in mind, you keep the distance. You think about your code as an idea, as a creation, instead of identifying yourself with it. And then if you get a pull request that changes 80% of what you did, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel like your heart's falling on the floor. If a test doesn't pass, just go fix the test. I did everything perfect. Empirical evidence is to the contrary. A really good way to keep this straight is don't anthropomorphize. Do not speak of code in terms of I and you and he and she. Code is not a person. Code is numbers. Code is, at heart, needs on a computer. I, personally, could not produce a 500 if I tried. I would have no idea. Right? I can't create a stack trace. My code can, and it does all the time. I cannot do that. Right? That is not me. I am not sending anything to anyone. This system is sending it to that system. So a great way to stay focused on ideas, simple but effective, speak of your code in the third person. The program sends this information to the other program. It keeps you in the abstract and keeps you focused on the ideas. That's how. Why? Why should we do this? There are a number of things. The first is that we can have conflict without confrontation. We can disagree without argument. Most developers are really bad at the social aspect of basically everything in life. This helps avoid having those confrontations that are really hard. It helps teams work together as teams and continue to do that even when we disagree with one another. Second, if we can do this with stakeholders, with customers, with clients, with management, with product, with people who are not code that are helping us do the design, then we communicate with them much better, and we can dig with our questions, and we can focus on what really needs to be done, and we know how and what to do before it happens, right? And so when you go back to your customer and you say, this is what I made, they'll like 80% of it, because customers never like 100% of anything. It's a major. If you clarify the names and clarify what you're trying to do in the names of code, and you write those names into your code is readable, and it is maintainable, it is expressive. It tells you what it's supposed to do at each point. And if you're willing to change those names, it will continue to bless it. It becomes much more self-documented. It's much more beautiful, and it helps you decide whether to put that code a lot better. If you know what you want before you do it, you can write code that does what you want. Instead of trying to redirect code that sort of did what you wanted. Push that over. Let's move on there. That's how I work. Keeps you open. Keeps you open to the new languages, the frameworks, the new methods of doing the work. And the stuff that happens around the code as well is just as important as what happens in the code. And this keeps you open to running those things, experimenting and trying them, because you've never reached the end of the process of learning. Finally, if you really want it, you practice dialectic, you practice it regularly, it gives you a real chance to discover the true nature of the world, the true, the beautiful, and the good, even though that doesn't help you write better code. So in conclusion, I would encourage you to be wrong. Be open about your wrongs, to yourself, to others. Be ignorant. Work to correct it, but be that. Understand that you already are that, and accept that you already are that. Constantly be a student. Learn everything you can. Even things you don't like. Learn those, because they will make you a better person. Be Socrates. Don't drink him. Thank you. We have time for questions if you'd like. Oh, on the imposter syndrome? Yeah, so a lot of developers, for those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is, a lot of developers, I don't know why it's on the screen, think that they don't belong where they are. They think that they are not capable, that they are the wrong person to do things, they are not good enough, they are not smart enough, and that they will say the wrong things, they will be found out, and they will be washed out in pieces. And that is something over 50% of developers carry that. It's like 60% of developers have that at one time. It's a problem. But I think it's largely because we're in a large industry. People think they're not doing it. But you are. We're all doing it.
So I'm just curious how, as a person who has like human feelings, right? How did you convince a team of other humans to adhere to this sort of methodology?
I started doing it.
Yeah.
That's all it's about.
And it just happened organically as a result of that?
Because you can change the nature of conversation. I guess it largely depends on the size of your team. I was on a 4-person team in a much larger organization. But you just start asking questions. You stop confronting people. You don't pick fights. And then other people think, oh, boy, I really like that. I really like not fighting. And then we just do it. We did, after a while, before I really started developing this talk, we read the Mina as a team, and we went and got beers and discussed the Mina and what Socrates is doing there. And that was really a seminal moment in the growth of the team. But try it out.